Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE servers, blade systems, storage, as well as Aruba networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate what that means within a management context. Today we're going to continue on our discussions with the MSA Gen6 line of solutions, and we're specifically going to be looking at the array management of this storage solution. Now I'm going to be managing specifically the 2062 I showed you in the last video, but the same management interface will be found in the 2060 as well as the 1060. Just the 1060 is going to have a fewer host ports. We also want to remember that a 2060 and a 2062 is the same pieces of hardware, just the 2062 includes the Advanced Data Services licenses as well as a couple SSD drives. So what I'm going to be showing you today is the management interface, and it's called the Storage Management Utility, or what we call the SMU, and we are on version 4 of this management interface. And certainly if you've been doing MSAs for a while, you can see they've progressively made this interface simpler and easier to use for people with bare amounts of storage knowledge. So instead of going on about the features and functionality, let me actually show you this management context. Okay, here we are logged into our MSA 2062. And again, I know it says 2060, but remember it's the same hardware, just extra licenses as well as some SSD drives. So I'm logged in over here. We are at the dashboard. One of the things I'd like to make you aware of, we're logged into one of the controllers. And if I go down here to maintenance and go to hardware, I kind of get a line drawing view of the storage solution. So this is the front, so we can see some SSD drives over here. And actually, this is clickable. So if I click on this, you get a little bit more information. And these are the two SSD drives that are included with the 2062. And over here, we've added some SAS drives, so we can see those as well. But what I want to show you is if I look at the rear view of this, right, we can see both the controllers. And if I select this controller up here, you see down here, this happens to be that IP address. Then I could click the secondary controller down here, and there would be another IP address. So if there was a controller failure, what I could do is just log in through this IP address right here. All right, so again, everything on this page is clickable, so I could click on the power supplies if I wanted to get more information on those. I could click on the network ports. I could even click on the SFP ports and get information about those. So this is an iSCSI-based system. So let's go back over to the dashboard again, because that's really where I want to start off our conversation. So this is the dashboard. It's where you're going to log in and get your main interface into this environment or understand the health of your infrastructure. So certainly this is divided into 4 sections. So certainly we've got alerts, we've got capacity, we've got performance, and then activity. Now, this is meant to be the dashboard to get a view into what's going on inside this environment, but I can get more detail from this page. I just have to click on these little green arrows here. You'll see them, all 4 of them right there. And if I click on this one, this will expand out. You notice the menuing's up here. So here's my 4 panels, right? And I'm underneath alerts, right? And then we get information as we see under alerts. We can expand for more information. One of the nice things I like about this interface is it has a nice clean look to it, but we could certainly expand and get way more detail if you wanted to. And I guess this is an example of that. Now I can move across the board and click on these individual pieces, right? Or I can go back to the dashboard and move over to capacity. Now, if you look at capacity, we've got pool A, so I'm going to expand that out real quick. Now we get a little bit more information on our pool. So I'm going to save the discussion about pools and tiering for another video, because I certainly think that deserves a little bit, I want to give you a little overview as to what is going on with a pool. So there's roughly a pool for each controller in here. And you can see that I only have pool A right now, and I'll tell you why that is. But a pool is a grouping together of disk types on the back end. So I could create a RAID, 5 out of SSD drives, and that would be put into the performance tier. And then if I created maybe a RAID 6 out of SAS drives, that would be put in the standard tier. And if I did something, same with maybe nearline drives, they'd be put in the archive tier. Now, my total storage in this pool would be a grouping together of the drive space across all of these drive types. Right, and what the controller's job to do with this pool is on an ongoing basis manage performance as well as capacity. So hot blocks of data will end up in the performance tier, and colder blocks of data will end up in the archive tier. Right, and again, the controller will move things around based on what's best for performance inside the environment. I've only got one pool right now, and I'm going to create a secondary pool in the environment. So right now, though, with only one pool, an A pool, my system is running in an active-passive model. So I've got two controllers. One's active, serving this pool. If it fails, the B controller will take ownership of this pool and make it available. But now if I wanted to make it active-active, I'd have to put another pool on B. So let's do that real quick just so you can see how that's done. Again, I'll give you more detail in another video, but I'll go down under maintenance. We'll go under storage. You can see I got pool A. You can see I only have one disk group underneath pool A. I could add extra disk groups if I wanted to, right? But in this context, what I'm going to do is add a disk group to pool B. So we certainly should be using RAID 6 these days, and I'll just grab 4 drives. You can see once I grab the right amount of drives, this lights up, and I'll click Add Group. Okay, we'll click OK, and now I have disk groups underneath each pool. So now when I go back over to the dashboard, we'll go up to the top, we can see pool A as well as a pool B. Now, if one of the controller fails, obviously the surviving controller is going to own both of these pools in this environment. That gives you a little idea. So again, we are inside capacity. We get a good overview of what's being used. We can see the base volumes inside the environment, snapshots. So again, I got 512 snapshots because this is a 2062. And the hardware is the same except for the additional licenses. So I've been upgraded from 64 snapshots to 512 snapshots. Also, with the Advanced Data Services licenses, I get the performance tier as well. Right, so without that, I don't get a tiering with SSD drives. Right, but I will get tiering with standard and archive drives inside this solution. Right, also, I can see what disks are in use, unused, and what are empty slots inside this environment. Right, so I can certainly go back to the dashboard, but let's just go over to performance. Right, so I get an overall view as to performance within our environment. You can see I was doing a little bit of performance runs on this. We can do things like configure this. Right, we can export it to a CSV if we wanted to. We could add graphs. Right, so we could do something like maybe average queue depth. Right, and I could change this from live, and I can go all the way out to 8 days if I wanted to. So that's great amount of information. And again, I get access to that through this section over here. So I get a bird's eye view over here. And we also have activity as well. So I can click on activity. You can see the disk group initialization. That's a disk group that I just created just a little while ago. Anything that's scheduled, like snapshots, and any recent activity that's happened inside this environment. All right, so that's the dashboard. All right, so why don't we go back down to maintenance. All right, so again, we touched on the storage. We created our pool. We'll go into more detail in another video. We're talking about hardware. So we looked at the front as well as the rear view. Again, all this is clickable. So if I want to get information on the power supply, I can do that. I can do firmware updates from this context as well. So it used to be where I used to have to go up to HPE's site and download the firmware and then upload it to the storage array, but that's no longer something that's done. This firmware, you can see this available update right here. Right, and I can view the firmware, and I can also activate the firmware. So this is what I'm running, and this is what I can activate if I wanted to. So that was pulled down automatically and provided to me in this interface. So that's kind of a nice perk. You can also see I'm a little behind on my disk updates as well. You could change the update server if you wanted to. Right now it's pointing to HPE, but if you want to do something internal, you could do that as well. We could go down the list again. We could look at the About section. Right, so we got some great links over here. We can go look into general information. Again, what I like about this interface is it sums things up pretty tidy, but then I can expand out and get a great amount of information if I wanted to. Right, and finally on the bottom, support. So collect logs, licensing. This is where I'd add my Advanced Data Services license if I didn't have it installed. Event history, as well as audit logs happen down here. So we'll go up one more section. We'll go into settings now. So this would be network settings for the controllers themselves. So these are the IP addresses. We could see that up here, as well as a net mask and gateway. All right, this would be the secondary controller over here. If you use an IP version 6, that would be here. DNS. These services, how you logging into this environment. All right, you're doing HTTP, HTTPS. I probably should uncheck that, huh? All right. Telnet, SSH, FTP, SFTP, and then as well as SMIS and some of the other protocols that are out there. So you can enable and disable them if you don't need them. And over here are the certificates. If you want to set some new certificates up. Next is users, if you want to add new users in the environment. All right, you can choose what type of interfaces they're allowed to have access to. You can integrate with LDAP and SNMP version 3 users as well. Down here would be system information. All right. Date and time would be important. Security, so if you're using disk encryption, as well as some other properties. And again, the amount of detail that you get into. Now, I wouldn't expect as a traditional user, you'll probably get into these areas, but it's nice that they make them available through the GUI here. But again, it's nice and tidy. You don't necessarily have to go into these areas. Notifications, right? Email, SNMP, if you're using syslog, iSCSI configurations, right? So you can see the ports on my iSCSI interfaces, and then peer connections. So where we really want to talk is up here underneath provisioning, where we've got volumes and hosts. And I have one host right here already connected. Now to get a host, you can see create host is not lit up right now. What you would do is you'd go to your iSCSI initiator. All right, and obviously you could do this in VMware as well. And then you'd go discover your portal and then connect to it. All right, and then your initiator will show up. This will light up and you can create a host out of that. You can actually create a host or a host group. And a host group would be maybe, you got a VMware cluster, you got a handful of ESX servers. If you're going to create a volume, you're going to present it to all those hosts at the same time. So that's the idea behind a host group. All right, we can also get a little bit more information about the host over here. All right, so let's go up to volumes. All right, so we get a little information about the volumes we have in the pool. All right, you see the volumes down below. I have this one volume created. Now I can interact with this volume by putting a check mark in the box, and I've got some actions over here. All right, I can also get at a lot of these actions by expanding the information out on the volume. All right. Again, we got great detail. I could edit all these, tier affinity, read ahead size. Again, if you want to tinker with these, you can. I don't expect you'll do that all too much. But here we can see I can expand the volume if I wanted to. Over here are snapshots. Host that this is attached to. This guy's not attached to anything. And if I'm doing any replication. All right, again, I get a lot of that just from over here as well. So let's go through and create a volume. All right. I'm going to pick the pool I want to put it on. Do I want to put it on the A or the B pool? I'm going to leave it on A. Give it a name. And just call mine Ingram Micro. We'll pick a size. I don't know. We'll pick 345 gigabytes, I guess. And we'll add the volume. Now this doesn't add the volume to the storage system yet. We could create multiple volumes at the same time. It just adds it to the create volumes process. Right? So if I want to create more than one volume, at any given time, I could do that. We're going to click continue. And now I could skip attaching this to the host, but I think I do want to attach this to the host. All right, so I'm going to click continue. I'm going to select our lonely host here. Click continue again, and then we're going to attach the volume. I'll click OK. And we can see our volume exists right here. And if I go up to our storage solution here, and we'll open up disk management. I'll do an action, rescan disks, and we'll find it. And again, that was provided that I had put in all the iSCSI information that I connected. Right, I discovered it, as well as, and you should always make sure you connect each path up. So at any rate, you can see our volume is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it online. And take, we'll initialize it, and then we'll format that on out. We'll click next and then finish. Okay. And since we're here, why don't we put a little data on that volume? We'll create a new document. That's certainly information I do not necessarily wish to lose. So I'll save that. All right, so now I got a file. It's on our newly created volume. So we can go through and maybe perform some tests. Maybe you want to expand the volume, so I could certainly do that over here, and we could expand the volume if we wanted to. Or I could certainly do that over here as well and expand the volume on out. All right, so I don't know, why don't we give this another 100 gigs. Expand the volume. Click OK. Now I'll go back over to our host. I'll do an action and then rescan disk. And we can see our extra sizes here, and I could certainly do something like extend the volume on out. All right. Go back over in our interface here. Let's talk about snapshotting. So certainly I could create a data protection plan over here. All right. And I could choose local or remote. Right. I could certainly go over here as well and go underneath snapshots and add a data protection from here. We're going to do local snapshots. Right. There's our volume, so I'm going to click continue. Now I could create a schedule if I wanted to. Right. So we can see the name, the schedule name, snapshot prefix. Right. And then we've got our scheduling settings here. So I want to make sure you've seen all of that. We got some time constraints as well. I'm going to go up and actually I'm going to create a snapshot right now. We could actually do both of these at the same time if we felt like it, but I'm just going to create a snapshot right now. I'm going to click continue, and I'm going to click apply. And I'll click OK. And we can see that snapshot shows up underneath. You can see it's the name appended. And we can also see that snapshot down here. Now I can do a variety of things with this snapshot. I can take and attach it to a host if I felt like it. Add a data protection schedule to it, as well as reset the snapshot and copy the volume. All right, so let's do something catastrophic. Let's go inside our volume over here. And let's remove our important information. Make sure we clean it out of the recycle bin. All right, now I'm going to want to revert this snapshot, get my data back. All right, so one of the things you want to do, and I would highly recommend doing this with any storage system, is first detach the volume from the host. So we'll detach that. So, and the reason this, you don't want any accidental writes to kind of happen to the volume. You want to preserve the integrity of your information. So I'm going to go over here. Again, I could do that up here if I wanted to, detach from host. Again, from this context, I can go over to hosts here, and I can click unmap. And then I'll click OK. OK again. We can close that context. And now I like to be sure, so I'm going to go over here into actions and then rescan disk. Okay, we can see that volume has disappeared. All right, so now we're going to go back and roll back this volume. So again, I can go up here, select the rollback volume right here. Or again, I can go into here, go under snapshots, select my volume, and then select rollback volume. I could also copy the volume. All right, so that's certainly easy to do with Windows. I'd have a secondary copy of this volume I can present. Within VMware, you'll probably need to re-signature the volume to make it available. So we'll do a rollback volume. This is a little notice telling me I should disconnect from the host. So I'm going to click OK here. All right, now this is completed. All right, and then we're going to go back in, and while we do that from over here, we'll attach to the host. I'll click continue, I'll attach the host, and I'll click OK. We'll go up to the host, do an action, and I'll do a rescan disk. And we can see our volume is showing up again, so we'll open up over here and go into our D drive, and we can see that I've been saved. Right, so that's basic management with an MSA Generation 6 storage solution off the SMU version 4, the Storage Management Utility version 4. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.